Again, guys, it's Kasim, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing all right. I hope your week is going okay so far. I wanted to talk about the four major lessons in life to learn, which I took from Jim Rohn. I wanted to share them with you because I thought that they were really, really interesting, and I think that they can help us, both you and I, to improve our lives, to become better human beings, to develop our thinking, our philosophy, and I hope that in some way these four major lessons can add some value to the quality of your life. Help you get whatever it is that you may want. Um, so, but before we get into that, as usual, guys, my goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers by June of this year. So if you want to help me get to that 1,000 subscribers, please can you like and subscribe to my channel. And also, if you like this video, and you actually like it, it helps with the algorithm, so it actually shows this video to a lot more people. So if you could do that, you'd be absolutely amazing. Anyhow, let's get into these four major lessons in life to learn that Jim Rohn shared. Okay, so before we actually get into them, I thought that I would talk about that word major because I think it's really important. He said that these are the major lessons to life and learn. So what does that mean? That means that there are some lessons which are important, but they're not as important as these. These are pivotal. These are foundational lessons that if you learn these, essentially it makes your life a lot easier. To metaphorically use this, it's like if you want to become a nuclear physicist or you want to become a mathematicianist, there are some major things that you have to learn about mathematics that set the foundation and help your ability to solve bigger mathematical problems later on. Meaning, for example, you need to know how to add numbers, you need to know how to subtract, you need to know about pi, right? These are foundational, they're major, meaning that if you don't understand how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, it becomes really difficult later on to try and do things like pi. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to suggest to you is these are, like I say to everybody, you've got to think about this for yourself. You've got to decide for yourself what is important. And I've always said to all of you guys, pull whatever is necessary for you. Don't just take everything that people say literally. Don't just literally be a carbon copy. Take it, tailor it to yourself, pull it apart. What is important to you? What works for you? What makes sense to you? Right? Don't be a sheep. Don't be a follower. Be a lion. Right? Be a leader. So let's get into these four major lessons that he talked about. The first lesson is he talked about the fact that learn how to handle winters. What does that mean? That means that winter, as we all know, is usually dreary, it is usually down, but he was using winter as a metaphor for the bad times. He was trying to explain that in life there are going to be bad times, right? And that's something that you have to come to and you have to accept at some point, because a lot of people, the philosophy that we hold and the belief system that we hold is that there shouldn't be bad in the world. They shouldn't be downs in the world. The world is unfair because obviously some people get to lose while some other people get to win. Now, that obviously is something that you will have to come to yourself, in that you will have to accept at some point, whether you like it or not, that there are some people who lose. That in order for there to be a winner, there has to be a loser. In order for somebody to come first place, somebody else has to come second place. In order for there to be ups and for there to be abundance and for there to be joy, there has to also be depression. There also has to be negativity, right? We live in this world of the yin and the yang. There is this kind of opposing forces which are constantly operating in the world. And the question that you want to then ask yourself is, have you come to the conclusion or have you come to the acceptance that there are bad things that are going to happen in the world? Because the point is, if you don't know that bad things are going to happen in the world, or if you don't accept that bad things are going to happen in the world, what ultimately is going to end up happening is the bad things are going to happen and then you're not going to be prepared for them. Right? Life is about building and defending at the same time. A lot of people just build and build and build and build, but they never think about the fact that, oh, I need to defend. In fact, if you look at people who are the most successful in life, those people have an ability to forecast into the future. They've developed this skill of looking at all the different angles, looking at the bad, looking at the good, and then making sure that as they build their life, as they move forward into their greatness, that they leverage certain things to ensure that things can't go wrong, that things are less likely to go wrong. So for example, if I use the example of me when I was an estate agent, when you're an estate agent, you would meet people who are building their own houses, and as they're building their own houses, they would go and get surveyors to come and survey their house. They would put double glazed windows. They would put a layer underneath the housing so that what do they call it? I've even forgot the name of it. Something to do with proof. Basically, it's a layer that you put, like a layer underneath the as you're building the blocks of a house, so that a damp-proof course. You have a damp-proof course, right? And you have to ask yourself, why would somebody put a damp-proof course? Why would somebody put double glazing? Why? Because they've been able to think into the future and realize that there's a possibility that things can go wrong. That there's a possibility that there is winter, that you can have bad days, right? And so what I would recommend to you and ask you to think about in your own life is, have you come to the acceptance that bad things can happen and will happen? And even further than that is, are you preparing for those bad things to happen? Because if you're not, you're constantly going to be surprised when these bad things happen. So that's the first major lesson that he talked about to learn in life. The second one that he talked about is how to take advantage of the spring. Obviously, metaphorically speaking, what he's saying is, when opportunity arrives in your life, are you ready for it? Because the average person, when opportunity presents itself, they're not ready. Somebody once said that it's better to be prepared for an opportunity that never arrives than for an opportunity to arrive and for you not to be ready for it. And the reality of life is, if you look at a lot of us in life, including myself, most of us, we want opportunity to come first, and then we will do the work, right? It's like the person who works in a workplace, in an office, who says, no, if you give me the pay rise, then I will put in the hard work, then I will make the effort. But it doesn't work like that, and that's one of the major lessons that you have to learn. How it works is, you put in the work, you put in the effort, and then you become eligible to qualify for the increase, for the greatness, for the abundance, for the result that you are going to be able to have. And actually, part of this is you learn to leverage this, because it's much easier to go to your boss and say to him, look, I've hit my targets this entire year, every single month, now can I have a pay rise? And going to your boss and saying to your boss, I deserve a pay rise because I've been here for 2, 3, 4 years, right? And thinking about that is really, really important, because if you can take plan and you can position yourself to take advantage, you tend to do better in life. It isn't guaranteed, but you do tend to do better in life. So I guess the question that I then pose to you is, are you the kind of person who's skilling yourself up, who's positioning yourself in such a way that when opportunity comes into your life, you're going to be able to take advantage of it? Or are you going to be one of these people who, whenever an opportunity comes to you, you're going to blame and say, well, it's unfair, well, other people have it, well, if only I had this, or if only I had that, or if this had happened? Is that you, right? Or are you going to be one of these people, when opportunity comes, you're going to jump straight on it? I don't know. It's just something for you to think about. So obviously that also means, guys, that you have to actually skill up, right? You have to position yourself before you get to the corner. When you're driving a really big truck, you don't start turning and positioning yourself when you get to the corner. No, you start thinking about the corner and about positioning yourself way before you reach the corner, right? You push, if you're going around a left-hand bend, you move to the right a little bit. You slow your speed down, right? You think about what is going to be around, how big is this truck that I'm going to try to get around this corner? Do you understand what I mean? And so my question to you is, are you actually positioning yourself so that when opportunity comes into your life, you are ready for it? Or are you constantly one of these people who says, when it comes, then I will be ready for it? So the third lesson that Jim Rohn talked about is that he talked about how that you have to learn to protect your crops. Of course, again, metaphorically, what he was talking about is that we live in this world of both where there is building and there is also defending. And many of us fall into the trap of building and building and building, but never defending. And what ends up happening is that people steal what we've built. People try to attempt to infiltrate what we have accomplished. People don't understand that the easiest way to tear down other people, or to I was talking to somebody and I was saying to him, do you know what the easiest way is for you to become successful? Or the easiest way for you to have the tallest building in a town? There are two ways to have the tallest building in a town. First is you build it, right? You get the resources, you save the money, you have the contractors, you get all the equipment, and you get all the bricks and everything, and then you build it. But the other way that you also get the tallest building in town is to knock all the other buildings down. And most people don't understand that the route that most of us go down is not to work hard, take years building and working in order to build our own building. Most of us tear other people down. Most of us tear all the other buildings down. And I'm sure you've seen it in your own life, where you've seen people who've actually, you see them who are actually capable of doing a lot. They are very gifted, they are young, they have the capacity to be able to achieve greatness, but yet they go around the world pointing at everybody else and blaming everybody else. And they forget that part of life is, of course, it's okay to blame other things, because there are going to be things that are going to happen which are outside of your control. But you have to put the emphasis on the way on and the responsibility and the weight of how your life turns out on yourself. Because if it isn't on yourself, if you are not, if the majority of how your life turns out isn't based on you, then you're a victim, right? Then you're not a survivor. You're not the predator. You are not a monster. You are not the attacker. You're the prey, right? You're the sheep. You're not the lion. You're the victim of life. And so as part of this, it's really, really important to understand that there are going to be some people who are going to try to steal what you've built. I'm telling you that the reason why banks have security is because if banks didn't have security, people will try to steal what they have in banks, right? There's a reason why usually when you go outside of a Rolex store, if you go to a Rolex store, if you go to a really expensive shop, there's usually security. Why? Because people are going to try to steal the stuff that they have. But even going further than that, you have to look at your own relationships and understand that if you built an incredible marriage and an incredible life, there are women who would deliberately come and find men who are married and try to tear up that life, right? Because a lot of women don't want to build with a man; they want a man that's already made, right? And so as a woman, as a husband, you have to actually protect yourself against this. People don't understand that one of the most vulnerable times for a man to be corrupted is when he becomes a CEO, he becomes a partner in a company, he becomes a director. Why? Because the moment he is in a position of influence, power, he's got all these resources, he's got all this responsibility, he is very attractive to many, many women. And so he has to protect himself. You as a wife have to position yourself in such a way that you protect your husband, right? And so these are things that you have to think about. And they may be silly and you might say, well, these are ridiculous things that I shouldn't really have to do. But you should do, because you have to protect what you've built. The way that I put it to people is that all good would be attacked. When I coach leaders, one of the things that I say to them is that all visions will be tested for authenticity. Any time that you want to do something good, it is going to be attacked. So don't be naive in thinking that you're going to build something wonderful and everybody's going to love it. There was one of the major lessons that I learned in my life is just because you're doing a good thing, it doesn't mean that people are going to support you. You could be noble, you could be doing something wonderful, but people will pull you down and tear you apart, even though you're doing something wonderful and something really good. So that's really, really important for you to also understand. So the last lesson that Jim Rohn talked about as one of these major lessons to learn in life is to learn how to reap in the fall without complaint. In other words, what he was saying is that you've got to take full responsibility for your results, right? He talked about the fact that the highest source of human maturity is accepting full responsibility. What I say to people is, and I'm writing a book about this, about how to move from childhood to manhood, is that the source of manhood is responsibility, full accountability, meaning that I used to work with a guy called George Seedman, and George Seedman used to say to me, remember, Kasim, every time you point a finger at other people, there are 4 other fingers pointing back at you. So that means that irrelevant of how your life is turning out, the way your life is at the moment is a result of the choices that you have made or haven't made. It is a result of the effort that you've put in or haven't put in. So if your life isn't going the way that you want it to go, that means you're either putting too much emphasis on other people, you are counting too much on other people. And now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't count on other people. That means you shouldn't ask other people for help. But that means that even if you ask them and they let you down and you're relying on them, you still have to take full responsibility. Otherwise, you fall into the victim mentality. You fall into the victim category, right? You have to take full responsibility, whether it works in your favor, whether it doesn't work in your favor. Because the truth of the matter is, guys, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you leverage life, there are going to be some times when things are not going to work out how you want them, right? You're going to find the perfect woman, you're going to invest loads of time into her, you're going to love her, you're going to do everything that you're supposed to do, and then she's going to go and cheat on you. But you've done absolutely everything that you could. You provided, like, you were active, all of these things. That doesn't mean that she's a bad person, you're a bad person. It just means that things happen. But the point is, you've got to take full accountability and not get into that victim mentality and the victim stance that so many of us end up going down. So, those are the 4 major lessons to learn in life. I don't know, what do you think? Have you learned some other major lessons in your life that you think are actually more important than this? Let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. Comment below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to help me get to my 1,000 subscribers by June. But apart from that, I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.